sharp, solid state and true timber, as well as
It's noticeable to me that when I use a 4K mouse, it just feels more responsive.
you can go as fast as you can without trying to go on. Hey guys, welcome back to another review. Today we're looking at the Lethal Gaming Gear LA-1. So first of all, huge shout out to LGG for sending me the LA-1 with a second shipment of Corpad's grips and their 4K dongle. The LA-1 was a mouse that was announced a long time ago, but experienced quite a few delays due to various reasons. Finally, upon release, despite the generally positive feedback from the community, LGG themselves still decided to sell all units at discounted prices because they weren't happy with the result. Now, given LGG's track record of releasing high quality products only, it's understandable that their standards are high, and so I really have to commend them here on their dedication and commitment to their values. Now, if there's one brand that deserves to be universally loved and respected, LGG definitely ranks amongst the top. So with that out of the way, let's jump straight into the quick summary. The LA-1 is an excellent mouse designed for all forms of claw grip. The coating and build quality aren't the best, and the sensor placement is definitely too far down for me, but the clicks feel and perform well, the shape is excellent, and for the price the mouse comes at, this is easily a no-brainer worth trying. So the first thing to tell you all is that the LA-1 is manufactured by DarmoShark. And if you have been following this channel, you will know that I've previously reviewed the DarmoShark M3, which is essentially a large copy of the final mouse shape. Now in this case, the LA-1 comes packaged identical to the DarmoShark packaging, with an LGG box art printed. Opening it up, you are greeted with an LGG card, an extra set of Corpad skates, the mouse, USB-C cable, and a receiver. Now, I'm not usually one to comment too much on packaging, and simple packaging like this isn't necessarily a bad thing. My issue with this, however, is that why is there so much plastic everywhere? Like, this was my reaction once having opened up the box, and I just see plastic everywhere. I'm not a person to go all Karen on plastic or something, but I also do try to do my part when it comes to being environmentally friendly, and I would definitely recommend you, the viewer, to do the same. So in this case, this really is just an excessive amount of plastic. LGG, other mice companies too, please reduce this in the future, we don't need it. Alright, Pulsar for example, have done an excellent job with mostly cardboard, or essentially only cardboard really. So the mouse retails at $60 US, now at the discounted price, and the 4K dongle needs to be purchased separately at $17 US, which I believe has also been very slightly discounted. In the case of the 4K dongle, they provide another USB-C cable and the dongle itself, and once again, there is still just an excessive amount of plastic. So upon picking up the LA-1, the in-hand feel just immediately reminded me of the DarmoShark M3. Now in this case, the mouse was discounted because of a supposed small flex issue, but at least on my unit, I have not experienced this at all. All in all, the build quality is acceptable. And while it's not something you pick up and you just know this is a high effort product with superior quality, like a Zowie, new Pulsars, the LA-1 still ranks higher than, say, something like the G-Wolves, right? In this regard, the LA-1 still feels more premiumly built. This build quality, on the other hand, is absolutely terrible, and so I give the LA-1 a passing grade. I do know that the build quality issue is something LGG is looking to fix via a new manufacturer in the future. Hopefully that goes well. Now moving on to coating, it's definitely another aspect that contributes greatly to how quality a mouse feels, and in this case, the LA-1 definitely struggles to keep up with many of the other big boys on the scene, like the new Pulsars for example. The LA-1 isn't raw uncoated plastic, but at the same time, the coating layer does suck by modern standards, and it feels kinda slippery to me. Now, this was definitely a mouse I could not enjoy without grips. As far as I'm aware, this is another focus point for LGG on future releases. Moving on to sensor and placement, the LA-1 features a 3395 with 4K compatibility, nothing more to be said about that. But the sensor placement really is my biggest pain point on this mouse. Why is it so far down the mouse? Right, it feels so far down for me. Now, based on the shape, design, and the location where you would grip the mouse, the sensor is nowhere near where it should be in order to respond well to movements. And this was very noticeable for me in my gameplay, where my left-right horizontal movements felt super off-axis, micro adjustments just felt less responsive, and using the mouse feels as if my sensitivity in-game was slightly reduced. There was a noticeable lack of, wow, this mouse feels so precise and accurate, which on the flip side, the HTS Plus here still holds the record of me having picked it up and being like, why is it so precise? So please, LGG with future releases, move the position of the sensor up by, I'd say even minimum 3mm. Look at where the thumb is, relative to where the position of the sensor is. You know, that just looks completely off to me. Now the clicks on the LA-1 uses Huano Blue Shell Pink Dots, which needless to say, are absolutely goated. Now in this case, the clicks feel light and crispy as expected, and they work well. However, it still doesn't compare to some others that use the same switches, such as the Lamzu mice. The buttons themselves have very slight wobble, but it's not really noticeable and you'll never actually feel it. I think the main difference in this case is the plastic shell itself. And I experienced this on the Pulsar X2H too, that the plastic itself on the mouse is just extra stiff, even though I took this mouse apart and modified it. So in the LA-1's case, there is also something that doesn't feel quite right. Nonetheless, this is nitpicking, and if you were to play in game, you won't notice this. One thing to note on the LA-1 that does deserve praise, however, is the comfort grooves. So I think the curvature and the depth of the comfort groove is perfect for claw grip styles, and I really do hope more mice, especially these kinds of mice with rear hump and low front style, start to incorporate. The X2H, for example, has a comfort groove, but it's nowhere near as deep or pronounced as the LA-1 is, and you can feel it, so props to the LA-1 on that. Moving into weight and distribution, the mouse weighs in at 52 grams, and the weight distribution is actually fantastic, especially for a mouse of this size. This is a dead medium-sized mouse. The distribution really makes the mouse feel light and movements are effortless, only praise from me here. The problem is, even though there are effortless movements, the sensor just doesn't quite pick it up. So skates and replacement is another area of huge praise for the LA-1, which uses core pads as a stock skate. If you guys follow this channel enough, you'll know core pads are my favorite skate. In fact, I'll show you guys just a small collection of how many skates and grips I've had. One sec, Danny, I need to get them all out. So here is a bag of just grips and skates and, well, yeah, grips and skates that I've collected over the times, and there's actually still more than this that I've thrown away. So as you guys can see, I'm a pretty dedicated skates and grips person.
Wait, didn't he just complain about the LA-1 packaging having too much plastic? Yet here he is using a lot of plastic to keep his collection of mice skates and mouse grips. This can only mean one thing.
Fickle! They're fickle!
And so to finally see a mouse that uses it in stock form, core pads in stock form, I am beyond happy. In fact, they give you a second set as well. Please, Lethal, never stop doing this, okay? Keep these. Please keep these. Now, in regards to the actual skate design, this is another area done perfectly, because both the front and rear skate sizes are perfectly suited to my taste and what I believe is optimal for performance. They're not too big, they're not too small, they're positioned perfectly, they're sized perfectly. This is it. This design is a real winner. Please keep these, LGG. Now lastly, we go into shape. The shape of the LA-1 is a flat-sided, rear hump, low front profile, claw grip styled mouse, similar to that of the X2, the X2H, and say the OP1. Now, the shape needs little mentioning from me here, and I can tell you right now that it's excellent. It's pretty impossible to dislike this. However, for my hand size at 21x12, the LA-1 hump is still not tall enough for me to truly feel comfortable with it. In my opinion, the length is perfect, the grip width is okay, but the hump is slightly too low. Now, the low hump could be compensated if the grip width was wider, but I'd rather the hump be taller than the mouse be wider in this case. I'd imagine for the average person with more regular sized hands, it should feel just right, but at the same time, I do question if some would find the mouse to feel a little bit long. The positioning of the hump, however, or the edges, the slopes, and things like that designed on the mouse are excellent. The rear of the LA-1 is sloped really well to fit on the comfortable parts of the palm, both for the ball of your palm, at the tallest point, and also at the drop-off towards the back here. I really have no complaints other than I need one that's redesigned for my hand size and has taller hump, which thankfully is in the works. Now, one drawback, however, is related to the coating. On mice like these, which rely on these rear humps, It's very important to maintain good grip or good contact on that section of the mouse at the hump, which is in contact with the ball of your palm. However, in the case where there is a lack of high quality coating, it sometimes becomes a bit slippery, and that can be detrimental to performance because it always feels like the mouse is loose in your hand. Now, in the case of the LA-1, this does occasionally become the case, and it's also why I give such high rating to the new Pulsar series of X2V2 and X2H, because the coating always ensures good grip and contact here. Now, you could compensate for this by putting grips on the rear. Core pads, for example, gives you that rear grip, but after having done so for many years on different mice, I've also come to the conclusion that it doesn't really work, because putting grips on the rear hump of the mouse lifts parts of the hump unevenly, and it actually reduces grip elsewhere on your palm. So it might feel initially good for a little bit, then it starts feeling completely wrong, and then I will take the grip tape off and it feels much better again, I'm getting that full contact, but then after a while that feels slippery again, and it really is just a doomed endless cycle of, oh, I want grips on the back, oh, now I don't want grips on the back, and then you come to realize that you just need a mouse with good coating and no grip tape, right? This is the only solution. Now, as for comparisons, the X2H is kind of the only comparable mouse I have on hand right now. And skipping aside everything except shape, the X2H definitely feels wider and more filling in the hand compared to the LA-1, which feels narrower and longer. Now, in this case, the LA-1 is definitely a more relaxed grip than the X2H is, especially with the deeper comfort grooves on the left and right buttons, whereas the X2H, despite having grooves, doesn't really feel like it. The hump is significantly more pronounced on the X2H here, more so because it's wider and rounder rather than being taller. And it really does fill your hand more than the LA-1 does. I'd say the LA-1 is a much more relaxed grip than the X2H is, unless you have huge hands, in which case the lack of width on the LA-1 can instead make you feel you might get some hand cramps because you're always having to squeeze in kind of like a pinching motion. Now, there is more micro adjustment room on the LA-1 and micro movements, but the X2H is more stable. And hand size relative to the mouse is also important. On a mouse without enough rear stability from hump or grip width, the action of changing from relaxation to tension in that instant in your fingers can cause unwanted micro movements as a result of your fingers not evenly applying force, and therefore having some wiggle room in your fingers, and that can actually cause missing of shots. You're like, oh, how did I miss that even though the crosshair was right on him? And this would sometimes happen on the LA-1 for me, and less so on the X2H. However, the extra grip width and the lack of room for more finger movements then means less micro adjustments and less small movements. You know, every time I try to do small movements, it feels a bit more awkward on the X2H than the LA-1 does. So finding your perfect balance between width is important. Now, in my case, I do enjoy the X2H width and size more overall. If you have any more comparisons you'd like to hear my thoughts on, join the Discord and ask me there. This video has gone on for a bit too long. So who should buy the LA-1? Well, if you're in a location where getting the mouse isn't too expensive on shipping, you'd like to support LGG, or you just want to try the mouse, then by all means, this is a no-brainer at $60 US. It's a really, really good deal. So once again, huge shout out to LGG for sending these units out to me. I am super excited and have extremely high expectations of the future releases coming out, especially that larger sized version. Keep up the good work, continue to stick to your company values and community reputation, and please keep sending me stuff. See you guys in the next one.